Okay, so 3 shading techniques that you need to try. Um, I'm going to do a demonstration of 3 different techniques. The first technique we'll be using a blending stump. So these are inexpensive. They come in different sizes. So there's 3. It's quite a small one, and then that one's a bit bigger. That one's the biggest. So to start off with, I'm just going to quickly lay some graphite down. This is just a standard HB pencil. Nothing new. Just circular motions. Just get some graphite down. As you can see, I am not making any effort whatsoever to make this neat or tidy. I'm just trying to get a base layer down so that we've got something to actually work with. Okay, so blended stump. You don't want to be going in really, really, really hard with a blending stump. You will damage the tooth on the paper, and that is literally the last thing you want to do. You want to try and preserve the tooth of the paper as much as possible, because as soon as that's damaged, you can't get any more graphite down. There's nothing there for the paper to grab the graphite, so it just slides over the top, and it's at that point that you literally cannot do anything else. If you are not dark enough and you need to get darker, you're struggling. So anyway, I'm not using any pressure, just going in light circular motions. And as you can see already, that's flattened that out much more than, like I say, when I put it on, I was just scribbling it on. I wasn't making sure that it was neat or anything. And I'm now doing the same again with a 2B pencil. So that's the only 2 pencils that I'm going to use for this demonstration, because that's really all you need um, for the purposes of this, at least anyway. So again, I'm not making any effort to make this neat or tidy. Just getting it down, and all I'm doing at the moment is getting the 2B down where the HB was as well. I'm not going over where I haven't been with the HB yet, so okay, again, blending stump, and you can see straight away it gets rid of some of that graininess. Just makes it much softer. And now that we've got graphite down, you can extend over to where there isn't any graphite and get some graphite down off of the blended stump itself, because obviously that collects graphite as we're moving it around. That's my dirty end, which is very dirty, whereas this one I cleaned just before I started, and you can see already that it's starting to get dirtier. But they're very easy to clean. You just rub them on a bit of sandpaper or something with a bit of tooth, or even just on a piece of paper. Just keep rubbing, and eventually you'll clean it off. So back in with my HB now, and again, not trying to be neat or tidy, just getting some graphite down. You still want to go in, like I'm doing big ovals at the moment, so you still don't want to go just backwards and forwards, or else you will get those edges that are more difficult to get rid of. There. So then we get HB in there. And then 2B back on this edge, some dimension. This is hot pressed watercolor paper that I'm using, so you can get lots of layers as long as, like I say, you don't destroy the tooth. I'll make that darker. As you can see, I'm really not trying to get this down light. Neat. I wasn't taking lots of time and effort over where I placed my pencil each time. That's how I started drawing. I didn't use blending stumps or blending tools or anything. I used to do it all by pencil strokes, and for the extra time it takes, I just don't think it's worth when you can get just as good results with these shading techniques that I'm showing you. I really don't think there's any need to spend all that time putting down pencil strokes from the first pencil stroke you put down. It's just takes too long. So anyway, there we go. There's one. So that's the blending stump. Just be careful, because if I flip that over to the dark side, you'll see how I can get it much more coming off. So you need to be careful if you're going into areas that are light, and make sure that you've got a clean blending stump. There, anyway, there's the first one. So next we will move on to my second technique, which is a paintbrush. So this is a Daler round number 10, but any paintbrush really works. You don't need to go and spend loads of money on different paintbrushes or anything. This is a nice soft brush, but even makeup brushes, any kind of brush will work. So anyway, same again. I'm gonna go in with my HB first, and same again. I am not worried about where my pencil strokes, which directions they go in. This is just for shading. So if you are drawing animals and things, once you've done your shading, then you do need to pay attention to which way your pencil strokes are going to put the fur in. That's really important, but that's not really what I'm showing here. All I'm showing is how you can use different techniques to get the same results, really. Although I have favoured techniques depending on what I'm drawing. So the blending stumps I will use quite a lot drawing animals, and then I'll either go in with a darker pencil or my Tombow eraser to fetch out the highlights and give the definition to the fur. But to get the base down, to get the base of the skeletal and muscular um, in the right places, it's much easier to get your shading done first with, like I say, I like using the paper stump for getting the first base layers down, because I use it much like I use a pencil. It's just another tool, um, and yeah, I just find that that's not the right one. I just find that it's easier to control. So going on to the brush now, because you can't put much pressure on with the brush, it does give you the opportunity to get lots more layers on, because the tooth of the paper is not being affected at all with the brush. It's just moving the graphite around. But you'll also see that you can't get rid of the pencil lines as easy with a brush as you can with the blending stump. And the third technique that I'm going to show you is really good for getting rid of pencil lines. So that's the technique that I tend to use if I'm drawing portraits along with the brush. I don't tend to use blending stumps when I'm doing portraits, because it's very easy to leave a dark mark when you're trying to get perfectly smooth skin. With an animal, it doesn't matter, because you've got the fur and highlights and so forth to go over the top. But when you're doing a skin, it's much more important that you don't have those dark lines in between smooth shading, because it's the first thing that your eye will see when you look at the portrait is the darkest bits. And if you've got a dark line, it just confuses the brain, and it's like, what's going on there? I can't work that out. Whereas if you've got nice, perfectly smooth shading, then automatically you don't even need to think about it. The brain just recognizes, oh, that's what that is. That's skin. That's the nose coming down, or whatever. That's automatic. You don't have to think about it. Your brain just recognizes that, because that's what it has. That's how it sees things every day. But if there's a mark in the middle of a cheek or something that isn't supposed to be there, it just completely ruins your portrait. And there's nothing worse than getting 3/4 of the way through a portrait and just trashing it by picking up the wrong blending stump, or being a bit heavy-handed. So I tend not to use them on portraits, and use the brush in what I'll show you next, which is the tissue paper, well, just normal toilet roll paper. That's my favourite, along with the brush, for portraits and doing skin. We'll get to that shortly. So all I'm doing here is exactly the same as I did on the first one. Just putting the graphite down, because obviously we can't do anything without any graphite down. But really not worried about how neatly it goes down. It just needs to be on the paper so that we can move it around. Okay, so I'm just going to go down with my 2B around here where I didn't go a minute ago. Okay, back in with the brush. Now, the other thing that you need to pay attention of when using the brush is that you will pick up graphite from over here and bring it over here. The brush will carry the graphite that's on top over. So you need to be careful if you're going from something dark to something light. You need to make sure that you've got all the graphite out of the brush before, or use a different brush. It's a good idea to have one brush for lights and one brush for darks. But again, you can see that that has flattened that out. You can see the grain of the paper through, because like I said, this one isn't so intrusive as this one. So depends what you're going for, I suppose. Like I say, I use this one for portraits, which I don't want smooth paper, so you don't get that tooth shining through, because like I say, it's smooth paper. So but yeah, anyway, on to the next one. So, oh no, actually not on to the next one. What I'm just going to quickly do is just get a bit more 2B. I don't like leaving things that don't look the way I like them to look, and that needs to be a bit darker in there, just to give it a bit more spherical, make it look a bit more than just a flat circle. But again, just going in with the brush, just gently. You don't want to be, flattening down the paintbrush. You just want to gently use the tip. There we go. Okay, to the last one. So again, just going to start with getting some graphite down. Again, absolutely not worrying about how it goes down. Just get it down. Just making sure that there's graphite down everywhere. I'm glad that the pencil has just gone down like that, because you can see that that has gone down really, really messily. There's dark marks, there's hooks, so you'll see in a minute with also going across it. So it's just going in all different directions. But you'll see in a minute with the toilet paper, it really is the best way to get some nice smooth shading with graphite or with charcoal. So there we go. So this is what I'm using, just normal standard toilet paper. It's this one has got a bit of pattern on it, and I would prefer to have just smooth toilet paper, but we don't have any of that at the moment. So now what I do is just wrap it around my finger so that I can then use the tip of my finger to just again gently smooth that out. And I mean, look at that already. It just goes so smooth. And again, with this method, you will, well, with any method, you will pick up graphite. So you need to be aware of how dark it is, and you don't want to be going in where it's light with a piece of dirty tissue. So see, just from that first layer that I only went to here, I've already got a full circle because I've carried some over from over here to over here. So now same again with my 2B. Again, just not quite scribbling, but just big ovals, really not bothered about how it's going down, just as long as we get decent covering, we get enough down. Go, and then HB. Remember, I have not put any pencil over here at all yet. This is all just graphite that I've taken from over the other side. So now I'm just going to go over with my HB. Again, you can see how messy this is going down. Obviously, the better, the neater you get it down, the easier it is to shade, to get rid of the marks, and it is a good idea to try and strike a balance between actually finishing a drawing and getting it finished and taking your time with the parts that, you know, the parts that need to take the time. But I mean, this is just to show that you can do it this way. Obviously, if I was doing a portrait, I wouldn't put it down like that. I would take more time over getting it a bit flatter before I started with my tissue and my brush. But this is just showing that you know, even if you just go for it and get your graphite down, you can still get some really nice shading. So back in my 2B again, just on this edge. Go. Back in with the tissue paper. Smooth that out. And then this has gone a bit dark, this edge. So if you rub, get a nice clean piece, and rub again. Again, I'm not putting massive amounts of pressure on, but you can see it's picking up graphite. There's graphite on there. It's getting lighter. So you can always, if you go too dark in places, you can always try and rub it off. And if that fails and you still think it's too dark, then if you get a kneaded eraser, you can tap some off. And then go back in with a clean piece of tissue again. Just smooth that out again. A bit more off there. Again, just gently smooth it out. And so, there we go. There are 3 different ways of shading, 3 different techniques that are all very good in their own right. So yeah, I encourage you to have a play around with all of those. See which one you prefer. Let me know how you get on. I'd love to know. And yeah, I'll see you for the next one.